Good Thursday afternoon to you. It's a little after 4, but time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns getting ready for their preseason game tomorrow against the Washington Commanders. The day off today, but the Browns did make it official, made some news. They signed the defensive tackle, Shelby Harris. Agreement, a one-year deal worth up to $5.25 million. They agreed to it late yesterday afternoon. 9 years experience is what Shelby Harris brings to Jim Schwartz's defensive line. And at the tweet, letting everybody know about it by Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Mary Kay, we had talked about it. It was a possibility. How big of a deal is it to get that veteran defensive tackle, do you think?
You know, I think it's a pretty big deal. I think it's really great that the Browns were able to land him. And I think that, now they have got a lot of veterans on their defensive line. And I think that's really good. They, they've got a number of guys on there. The starting guys have 6 years experience or more, including 9 from Shelby Harris and 8 from Zadarius Smith. So Jim Schwartz, an old school defensive coordinator, likes veterans that know what they're doing. And this will be helpful for them because they do have to hit the ground running with those 3 early AFC North games.
The other thing is the defensive tackle position was one where we were concerned last year because they were young. Maybe the depth was a concern, but take a look. This kind of puts it in perspective. Last year, their last 3 games, the defensive tackles were Taven Bryant, Jordan Elliott, and Perrion Winfrey. The top 3 defensive tackles week 1, Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Siaka Ika. So you've got the 2 veterans, a big guy, different body types, and it probably goes along with the style they want to play under Jim Schwartz.
Yes, absolutely. And, what they're going to get from Shelby Harris is a pass rush from the interior. That's another reason why they really liked Zadarius Smith. They can use Zadarius Smith inside to get that interior rush. And if you look over Jim Schwartz's defenses over the years, they really did a lot of that. And he likes to get that from all levels of the defensive line, all across the board. So, that's key. And now Zadarius Smith, with injuries to some of the younger guys, might end up having to play outside, perhaps a little bit more than he normally would have. Now they've got somebody in there next to Dalvin Tomlinson who can not only provide depth, but start and do some of the same things.
We know Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, they're not going to be the type of guys that are going to say, we're going all in. That's just not their style. What does the signing of Harris tell you, though? Just kind of the mindset.
You know what? I mean, they're adding quality depth at a position where they really could use it. I think that, they've already demonstrated that they were all in. That's happened, all throughout the entire offseason, starting from, Elijah Moore and some of the other things that, they've done, Zadarius Smith. So this is just another piece to the puzzle. This isn't, the cream of the crop or anything like that. This is a good guy who's turning 32 tomorrow, who's going to come in here and add some quality depth to the position, maybe start there next to Dalvin Tomlinson and really help make that defensive line be what it can be. But I don't think it should be overstated either.
So Sports Illustrated, questions that they had. And so the question they ask, who benefits the most from the Shelby Harris signing? They say Anthony Walker and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. So a couple of the linebackers. Does that make sense to you?
Well, yeah, and again, it's not just Shelby Harris. It's everything that they've done along the defensive line. All of those guys are designed to go forward, get to the quarterback, be disruptive, wreak havoc, and then the linebackers kind of clean up whatever's left after that. So, I think that, again, he's a really, really good addition, and I know he'll get a significant amount of playing time. But again, I don't think this necessarily shifts the balance of power in the AFC North or anything like that. I think it's a good signing.
So it's kind of interesting that just when you look at this is from Mike Clay from ESPN. And what he tweets out is the Browns have quietly assembled a very good roster that includes a stacked defense. So you got tackles, Tomlinson and Harris, edges, Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Okunrankwo, linebackers, Owusu Koromoa and Anthony Walker, cornerbacks, Ward Newsome, Emerson, safeties, Thornhill, Delpit, McLeod. When you stack it up on paper, that's a really good defense.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent on that defense. There's also a lot of talent on offense. But as we have been saying before, it has to come together. They have to understand the schemes. They have to know where to be, when to be there. Again, I think that's why Jim Schwartz likes a lot of veteran guys up front, because they know what they're supposed to be doing. They understand the coaching points, and they understand the scheme and the defense, and they'll know how to play the wide nine. And what they don't know about his exact type of scheme, they can figure it out from experience. So I think that's a really good sign. So yeah, it's all there on paper. They've really overhauled this defense, I think, in a much bigger way than it might seem. I mean, there was that one year where there were 9 or 10 new starters on defense, but this seems almost just as significant to me what's going on this year in terms of revamping this unit under Jim Schwartz. And I think he has a ton to do with why they keep adding guys.
The other thing is you've added some elite. When you're talking about Zadarius Smith, that's elite. Dalvin Tomlinson, that's elite. Juan Thornhill, Rodney, you've added some higher end starters as well.
Yeah, they really have. I mean, Juan Thornhill, that's a wonderful signing there. Again, Rodney McLeod brings that veteran presence that is just always so welcome. So good for leadership. They've changed the culture on defense. In addition to the talent on defense, they've changed the culture. There are some really, really good guys that are leading the way, showing the way. And, and it's just really at every level of the defense for the most part. Zadarius Smith he has brought in just so much experience at a high level that even Myles Garrett says we have to listen to him when he tells us something. And I thought that, was really significant. So, they're on the right track, and they just have to put it out on the grass now.
So I know you wrote an article about this. How ready do you think the Browns defense will be for those 3 early AFC North games?
I think they'll be ready. I mean, what they have to do is just, in some respects, keep it simple. And I think what's going to be happening in those first 3 games is Jim Schwartz is, for the first time in that first quarter of the season, going to be seeing how all the parts fit together. Who does he like best in the nickel in certain situations? Who does he like in the nickel when there's a bigger receiver playing the slot? There are so many things. Who does he like on the goal line? I mean, there's just so many things that he will be learning about this defense in the early going. But they don't have time, again, to really come up the learning curve and be making a bunch of mistakes. They have to be efficient. So I think he'll have to keep it somewhat simple. But by the same token, you can do some different things when you have such experienced guys up there.
What's the biggest thing that kind of stuck out to you in that first preseason game? It can be offense, it can be defense against the Jets, the Hall of Fame game.
Well, I think you can start with DTR. I mean, he just did a really, really nice job. And, and he showed some things. He showed that the moment was not too big for him. He showed that if he got pressed into service this season, that he could probably handle it. He's played a lot of football, started about 48 games over his 5 years at UCLA, and that's meaningful. We've seen other young rookie quarterbacks have to come in and play and handle the moment. And I think he showed that he could do that. We also saw Austin Watkins make run a nice route and make a nice catch on the game-winning touchdown pass. That was really good. Unfortunately, they lost Alex Wright. They lost Isaiah Thomas. They're 2 young defensive ends for a period of time. Thomas in the practice a couple days after that game, Alex in the game. So now they have to kind of scramble a little bit and regroup after that. But I thought they showed some good things in the game.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason when we return. Stay with us on Sports for CLE.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, this is Coach Crosby down in West Virginia. I called into the show about DTR. Now, I know it was a Hall of Fame game, and he was playing against third and fourth stringers. But you had to watch that after seeing Kellen Mond just look bland and watch his scrambling and just the fun that he was having and the charisma and everything. You had to watch that and come away with, let's see what this guy can do the next couple of weeks. I think we got something special. And if DW doesn't come through, I think Haslam will eat it. If he does not come through this year, I think Haslam will eat the contract and they'll move on. This kid is special. Y'all take care. Love the show. Later.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, he had me until he talked about moving on from Deshaun Watson. I don't see that happening, but I will agree, and we talked about him earlier. Dorian Thompson-Robinson looks like he belongs.
Yeah, nice, encouraging performance by the rookie, but it must be remembered, he played in a second half of a game, a preseason game, against backups. So third and fourth stringers, and he did a really nice job. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Again, the moment wasn't too big for him. He was efficient. He operated the offense really well. He went to the right place. He threw nice passes. He used his legs. He did a lot of really good things. So all of that is really great. But it must be kept in perspective. Right now, he's probably the third string quarterback. I don't see any way that they're going to keep Kellen Mond on this roster. Maybe he comes back on the practice squad. Maybe they try to figure out what else to do with him. But, I think it will be Deshaun, Joshua, and then DTR. They drafted him in the 5th round. I really think that, he's going to be the guy that they keep as their third quarterback. So good for him that he had a nice game, but I think we need to keep it in a little bit of perspective.
Yeah, I would agree. And he's becoming the developmental quarterback. You always want a guy that you can develop and bring along. And the Browns haven't had the luxury of being able to do that. So let's give him some time, see what he can do. Deshaun Watson met with the media yesterday, talked about what he has seen from Elijah Moore so far.
He's a big impact. He can do it all. He's very versatile. He can outside, inside, whatever we ask him to do, he can do whatever and he goes full speed. He doesn't never complains. He just try to be perfect and whatever he can do to, be productive for this offense and his team and for himself. So he's definitely going to help this offense and he's going to be great for us.
Sean, you mentioned getting ready for September 10th. Have you had much time to start looking at all at Cincinnati? I know it's pretty early.
Yeah, I just kind of look all over the whole league. Right now, we're just focusing on, the Cleveland Browns. Of course, you skim a little bit on Cincinnati and what they're doing, and try to watch the previous games that we played against them and their scheme and things like that. But with the first game, it's kind of hard. You just try to take the base of what that defensive coordinator usually, come out with the first game, and then you try to adjust, the first half and then go from there.
Mary Kay, you've been at all the practices and training camp. What about the chemistry Watson and Moore have? And what have you seen with him and his receivers through camp so far?
Yeah, Deshaun and Elijah have done a really, really nice job together. And in the very early part of camp, when we were at the Greenbrier, Amari didn't practice for a few days, and Anthony Schwartz was kind of out, and Marquise Goodwin, we know, is out. So it really gave Elijah and Deshaun an opportunity to work a lot together on their timing, on their chemistry. I think Elijah blends perfectly with Deshaun's skill set. He's ready for whatever Deshaun offers. He's lining up all over the place. He's catching everything that comes his way. He catches the ball really well with his hands. For a smaller guy, he high points the ball and leaps well. He can make the diving catch. He just is a really, really excellent talent. And I think that those two are going to be dynamite together this season.
I know you've addressed this on an Orange and Brown Talk podcast as well. What are you hoping to see? What do you think we should hope to see from Deshaun Watson, however long he plays on Friday night tomorrow?
Well, I mean, I think in a perfect world, you want to see him try to go down and score the football. That's what you want to see. You want to see a touchdown pass, of course, every single time, every series he's out there. So if he's out there for 2 series, you want to see them end up with 14 points. Will that happen? It remains to be seen, but that's exactly what you would want to see. So you want to see him operating efficiently. You want to see him connecting with Elijah. And I don't know if Amari's going to play in this game or not, but you want to see him spreading the ball around, going to the right place with the ball, getting rid of it quickly, not taking sacks. You certainly don't want him to get hurt in this game. So just kind of being super efficient and not showing, he's not going to show too much. We know that. But you just want to see him operating efficiently.
I know you've written an article on this. What do the Browns still need to see relative to strides from Jedrick Wills? And they feel like he made strides in 2022. What are they still looking for? And again, I know you wrote an article about this.
Yeah, Bill Callahan talked about him this week. And one of the things that he discussed was the fact that they want to see him finish more violently. So that's what they're going to be looking for. Now, I've been talking a lot about Jed actually today for on our podcast and on a radio show because I keep getting asked about him. And the thing to remember about Jed Wills is that he has to go up against Myles Garrett every single play in practice, and that's hard. That is really, really hard. It's exhausting. It can be demoralizing at times. You're going against arguably the best defensive end in the NFL, or one of the best. And, that's a tough thing to have to do down in and down out in hot summer sun. So, I think he's a lot better than, what he might show on some of the little camp clips that get tweeted out and whatnot. The Browns have been happy with his development. Again, they just want to see him finish a little stronger, a little bit more violently.
Before we go to break, again, I know this from an Orange and Brown Talk podcast. What do you think the injury to Jerome Ford means to the Browns if he's unable to play, the first couple weeks of the season?
Well, they have to find somebody to replace him. So they're going to have to figure out, if that's going to be John Kelly. I know that Demetric Felton Jr. was on the bubble heading into this camp. They are letting him really rely on focus on running back this camp as opposed to receiver. And so he's got an opportunity now. He's going to have to go out in the game on Friday night and show what he can do, because now he's got a chance to, to maybe play on third down a little bit. The key there for him is that he's got to be able to pick up the blitz. So, that's key. He's never really had to do that very much. And you have to be on point for that, because that could obviously make or break your quarterback. So, that's one thing there. But I think the Browns will keep their eyes open for another running back. They're going to make sure that they have the best number 3 on the roster they can find.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. And I'm going to step aside, take another timeout. Other side of the break, we'll get Mary Kay's perspective from camp. She's been there every day and been reporting. Sports4CLE continues to talk Browns with Mary Kay Cabot. Stay with us. The Ohio Law Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Mary Kay, I've said it before. You've been out you've been in West Virginia for all the practice. You've been in Berea for all the practice. You were at the preseason, the Hall of Fame game. Your takeaways, who are some guys that fans should be excited about?
Juan Thornhill is one on the defensive side of the ball. He's somebody to really keep your eyes on. I think he's ready to make a huge impact for this football team. Martin Emerson Jr. has had a really, really nice camp. I think he's taken another step up from what I thought was a great rookie year. I think he's got Pro Bowl potential, and I think if he can maybe add some of those interceptions into his game this year, I think he has a chance to get there sooner than later. Maybe not this year, but I think he could be on that trajectory. I think he's that good. From a linebacker position, they're still working through a lot of issues there with injuries and whatnot. But it was good to see Sione Takitaki and Anthony Walker Jr. get into some team drills recently. And then on the defensive line, I mean, Miles always looks good. Miles looks amazing in practice, as we've talked about. Z is looking really good. All those guys really are up on the defensive line. On the offensive side of the ball, again, we have mentioned Elijah Moore. David Njoku's starting to come on strong. I thought he had a really nice day yesterday. I've always said this before, and now I'm going to have to be held to it. I've said that if he had a really, really good quarterback, that he is capable of 8 touchdown catches a year. So now it's put up or shut up time for me on that because I've been saying it long enough, but he's never really had the quarterback to be able to do that with. So now let's see if he can do it. Jordan Akins, I mean, he's somebody that, I think is going to get a lot of targets with Deshaun because they've played together. And yeah, some of the younger receivers that have done a nice job.
So it seems to me like there are days where the offense wins, if you will, and there are days when the defense wins. That's just kind of my perception. Is that accurate? And if it is that what Kevin Stefanski wants to see from this team?
Oh, sure. That's to be expected. I mean, you've got a really good defense now to go along with your really talented offense. And you want to have days where the defense wins and you want to have days where the offense wins. In the early part of practice, the defense was winning in the red zone a lot. Deshaun sort of got that figured out. He went out in a practice this week and just dominated in the red zone. Went like 6 of 8 in a 7-on-7 red zone period in terms of TDs. So that's what you want to see. Deshaun is heating up at the right time, I think. And I just think it's a matter of, just again, putting the whole thing together. And we really haven't seen him out there with his full, complete complement of receivers at all times. So, once they get into the regular season and you've got everybody out there, I think the potential is there for them to be explosive.
So when I see Cedric Tillman, there's a polish with him, and I noticed it a lot in the Hall of Fame game. He looks much more polished than the quote-unquote third-round draft pick that usually is. What have you seen? Have you noticed that, and what have you seen from Tillman? He just looks like he's got the NFL the NFL vibe going with him.
Yeah, he's doing a nice job. When you play at a high level of competition, like he did at Tennessee, it's easier to come into the NFL and make that transition and look good. So, he was a really, really good receiver in college, and it's showing up here. He's catching almost everything that comes his way. He's making a few mistakes here and there, but that's to be expected from a rookie. But he's been making really good progress, and he's got tremendous size, which is really going to come in handy for Deshaun.
Yeah, he is one of those guys that always, when they do the scramble drills and you see that, he seems to be the guy that Deshaun finds coming back to him from the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see, a lot of guys show that they can stay relevant, stay available for Deshaun on those scramble drills. And the ones that are able to do that and remain in his peripheral vision and be available to him as he's scrambling around out there, those guys are going to be the ones that are going to get those targets. So it behooves them to try to do whatever they can to be there for Deshaun.
So the secondary, how do you think, and again, I know you've done this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, I find it really interesting. How do you think the roles in the secondary sort themselves out?
Well, Greg Newsome is out right now, and that's unfortunate, but he is supposed to be 100% for the opener. That's 1 month from today, by the way. So he's got 4 weeks to kind of get back. I watched him run some gassers yesterday with the rest of the defensive backs. So that's a really good sign. Once you start running, it means you are on your way back to the football field. So good for him for that. So in the meantime, they have to find other guys that can play inside in the slot. Thomas Graham was a candidate at that, but he's now gone, waived injured. So they're going to have to find other guys. Cam Mitchell can do it. They're going to use Denzel Ward in there some. They're going to use the safeties in there some. And some of it will come down to game planning. If you have a bigger guy that you're going against, you put a safety in there per se. But yeah, so they've got Martin and Denzel until Greg gets back on the outside, and then they're rolling a lot of other guys in there. But the defensive backs have definitely been a highlight of camp.
Do you think do we see all three of those safeties? That's the other thing. They went and got Thornhill, and then you thought, okay, great, you got Delpit and Thornhill. Then they get Rodney McLeod, who's by all accounts, I know he's a little older, but he's still a quality starting safety in the NFL.
Yeah, I think you'll see those three safety looks, and I've been thinking that there will be times when you have sort of a three safety look that Martin Emerson can serve as that third safety because he is so big, and he has the ability to do that. So I think that'll be interesting. But certainly Rodney McLeod has brought a lot of veteran experience and talent, and he can be in there too with Juan Thornhill and Grant Delpit as the third safety. So they have so much versatility, so many options in the back end.
Before I let you go, what are you watching for in the preseason game tomorrow? So preseason game 2 for the Browns, week 1 of NFL preseason because they had the Hall of Fame game. What are you looking for?
First thing I'm looking for is Deshaun Watson to Elijah Moore. I can't wait for the fans to see the connection. It's really good. I had a chance to sit down one-on-one with Elijah Moore at the Greenbrier. Really smart, cool, thoughtful young man, really good at his job. And, I think the Browns may have struck gold with him. And I think this is sort of the first opportunity to see what those two are going to look like against some live action.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Great Browns coverage for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus joins us. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. The Browns made it official earlier today. They signed Shelby Harris, defensive tackle, to a one-year contract worth up to $5.5 million. Take a look at Shelby Harris. It is a guy, this is his video with Seattle. It's a guy that gets upfield from the defensive tackle position. There you see him stepping in and getting the sack. Harris hands up in the passing lane, doesn't get the sack, does hit Justin Herbert's arm there as he's trying to come forward and throw it. But take a look at this. This is what Jim Schwartz wants to see. Guys in the backfield creating havoc, and Shelby Harris would seem to fit what Jim Schwartz's defense wants to do and what they do well. Let's welcome Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus into the show. And Brad, tell me about Harris, what you see with him. It seems to be like it's the perfect match to this defense and what it needed.
110%. Like you just highlighted there, in each of the last 4 seasons, Harris has at least 25 pressures, which is a solid number on the interior. Last year in particular, had a very high pass rush win rate, was consistently winning his one-on-one matchups on the interior, and he's going to get a lot of those one-on-one matchups with all of the players around him in Cleveland. And then, equally as important, in 4 of the last 6 seasons, Harris has a run defense grade above 75, is a good player against the run, can stack and shed, can take on blocks, can make things happen opposite of Dalvin Tomlinson. Just another piece to add to the fold, and maybe the final, big ticket item they needed to really shore up this entire defense.
Is it how excited should Browns fans be about that? I mean, the defensive tackles were not good last year. We'll leave it at that. Tomlinson and Harris, is that a good combo?
It's definitely a good combo. Look, is it the best in the NFL? No, but it is a very capable and solid duo. Tomlinson is one of the most consistent players across the entire NFL the last 6 seasons, has never graded below 70 at PFF over his entire NFL career. And I mentioned some of Harris's numbers there as well. An older player, but a solid player. And what it also does, though, is now young guys like a Siaki Ika and Jordan Elliott, some of the other pieces in the fold, they don't have to be relied upon to play such a big role. They can be more rotational, keep their legs fresh, be put in positions to succeed where maybe you only ask them to do the things that right now in their game as younger players they're particularly good at, and that's always going to boost their profile, make them more confident, play better. It just adds another piece to where the depth is now solidified as well. It's a good duo, not a great duo, but it's certainly a capable duo and a whole lot better than last year.
Is it fair to say it gives Ika and Jordan Elliott a couple of guys to kind of get some veteran tips from, to learn from, if you will?
No doubt about it. I think both guys you can certainly learn from. With Tomlinson, very interesting where he was a one technique, kind of your typical nose tackle with the New York Giants. Obviously had Leonard Williams and other players around him that predicated that lineup. And then he goes to Minnesota and they kind of use him more as a pass rusher, get upfield, 3 technique type of player, which I'm not sure is entirely his game, but he figured it out. He learned a way to succeed and to make plays in both facets of football depending where he was aligned. But I think he now has a wealth of knowledge. I think Jim Schwartz is going to put him where he actually fits most comfortably as kind of a true one tech, and it becomes easier now with the addition of Shelby Harris, and then Siaki Ika can be his backup as a one technique because I think that is his more natural position as well. But yeah, it has this downstream effect, this funneling effect of these are wily old veterans, smart football players. There's a reason they're still making good money on 3rd and 4th contracts is because they're smart, they're savvy. The athleticism and the talent gets you in the league. Sure, it can keep you in the league for a while. When you're signing solid contracts at 30, it's because you're a smart, understanding football type of guy, and they can pass that down.
All right, this is from Touchdown Wire, the best edge rushing duos in the NFL. Number 1, they go with Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith ahead of Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Few in NFL history have been consistently dominant as Myles Garrett during his first 6 seasons in the league. Now paired with Zadarius Smith, who has been elite in his own right, both can expect to potentially have career years as the league's best pass rushing duo. Quarterbacks beware, you can't double team both of these players. That makes a lot of sense to me. Is that how you see it as well, Brad?
Yeah, I would make that argument as well. I think Myles Garrett is probably the best pass rusher in the NFL. Maybe there's an argument for a Nick Bosa, a TJ Watt, a Micah Parsons, but I do think right now Garrett is probably in that number one spot, especially as a true pass rusher getting after the quarterback. I mean, just obviously a freakish athlete, can do things that few people on the planet can do. And then you drop in as a Darius Smith, who now has been super productive in multiple different stops, in different defenses, in different roles, as more of an outside linebacker, more of a hand in the dirt 4-3 defensive end. You can move them inside, move them outside. And I think because of all the multiplicity of all the players in the fold here, they're also going to play and produce like the best edge duo in the NFL. I think they're going to both have 70-plus pressures if they stay healthy. Maybe both have double-digit sack seasons. That might even be a low number for Myles Garrett. I think they are going to be a wrecking crew in Cleveland this year.
All right, this is kind of interesting. This is from Sports Illustrated. Under Joe Woods, Cleveland ranked 30th, 26th, and 16th in blitz percentages. While Schwartz's scheme is definitely more aggressive in terms of attacking the line, the reality is he also skews bringing extra pressure. In the final 3 seasons as Eagles defensive coordinator from 2018 to 2020, Philadelphia checked in at 32nd, 19th, and 28th in the same metric, that being blitz percentages. So there's a misnomer because they want the defensive line to be aggressive. It doesn't mean blitz. It means be aggressive and make it chaos at the line of scrimmage for the offense. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think more the way he weaponizes first his alignment, using a wide 9, which is an advantageous position for his edge rushers, getting them one-on-one matchups. Like you mentioned, you can't double both guys, but you can also try to avoid chips and do different things to get them in favorable positions. And then also a bunch of stunts and games up front. We saw that a ton in Tennessee the last couple of years. Last year in particular, when they lose Harold Landry, don't really have Bud Dupree in the fold either. And you had a bunch of solid football players, but no superstars. And they were still able to consistently generate pressure. That's because you're seeing a lot of inside-outside stunts and games and different things to free up their pass rushers. That's what you're going to see, but also probably some 5-man fronts as well, which maybe wouldn't be charted as a blitz, but you'll see some bear fronts, some different things to get all these guys unleashed and a free path to the quarterback.
Is it fair to say my perception of Jim Schwartz, and if you disagree, that's fine, is he's going to look at and say, this matchup favors this guy. I'm going to try to get the alignment that gets this guy against the matchup that I want.
100%. And that's why I do maybe mention too many times when I come on the show just the fluidity and flexibility of some of these guys, because I think there are going to be weeks where you say, oh, Zadarius didn't kick inside at all last week, and then he had 20 pass rush reps as a 5-tech or a 4-eye, on the interior of the tackle, is what I mean by that. Like, yeah, week to week, I think you're going to see very different things, and you have to trust and understand that Jim Schwartz has been around this league for a very long time, went to a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator, has been very good at multiple different stops. Even in Detroit, obviously, wasn't a head coach for super long, but, that franchise's defense during some of those years was better than it had been for quite some time and has been since. Yes, I think that is the big thing for him as well. And every good defensive coach is, of course, you have your bread and butter, you have your preferences and your flavor, but realistically, on a week-to-week basis, you need to mirror the opposing offense and change what you do based on the opposing quarterback, based on their personnel. And I think that's what he's shown over time is what he's very good at.
So before we go to break, news coming out of Baltimore, and this is according to Josina Anderson. Jadeveon Clowney received an offer from the Ravens and is taking some time to think about it, according to her sources. Does Clowney to the Ravens make sense to you?
It certainly does. I think they need to make a move here. You lose Calais Campbell, you lose Justin Houston, a couple other players over the last couple of years, Brandon Williams on the interior, a lot of these veteran presences. And now you have, I think Odafe Owe is going to be a good player. I think David Ojabo, of course, who tore his Achilles right before his draft year in 2021 or 2022, is going to be a good player as well. You have Tyus Bowser, who's kind of a, Swiss Army knife, but I think they needed this veteran presence, a base end, in particular on early downs. I know Clowney, you always want to see his sack numbers, number 1 overall pick, all these things. He's a really, really good run defender and a good base end that I think will make a difference in Baltimore. I think it's actually a perfect fit and a move they kind of need to make to to get one more piece on the edge of that defensive line.
Brad Spielberger for Pro Football Focus and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We'll hear who Fred Taylor, former NFL running back, feels is the best running back in the NFL. Sports for CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Former NFL running back Fred Taylor, a really good one when he played as well, was on the Pat McAfee show talking about elite running backs in the NFL.
I want to add one guy who I think we all can consider might be the best back in the NFL right now, Nick Chubb. He's been healthy. Okay. He's been kicking ass. And, you know, with the addition of Deshaun Watson, who should also, increase their run game output. I think prior to that, he's just been a consummate pro. He doesn't say much. He just gets the job done. And you would expect teams would look at what he's done, look at his value, and say, we have to pay this guy. So there are not many guys like that left. But when you talk about a guy who can carry the load, put his team on his shoulder, you got to talk about Nick Chubb.
Brad, I'm always curious when guys of a previous era talk about current guys, because Fred Taylor knows what the position entails. So he carries a little bit more weight, I think, than a lineman or a defensive back talking about a running back.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think he is spot on there. Nick Chubb is probably comfortably, in my mind right now, the best pure rusher in the NFL. You can maybe make some arguments about the full body of work. Obviously, we've heard some reports about trying to work in more catches and things of that nature, but you don't have to change his game. He is the best downhill runner in football. Obviously for us, always the top of the NFL in rushing grade, but also forced missed tackles per attempt, yards after contact, the ability to play through tackles, play over tackles, do pretty much anything you can ask of a guy. He is a rare breed right now of a guy, a workhorse player. Is it a big deal to lose Kareem Hunt? Or, it's not a small deal, but I'm not overly worried about it. I think Jerome Ford and the rest of the guys will be fine because Nick Chubb is that type of guy. And I do like you mentioned as well. Doesn't talk much. He has that famous quote about you don't take a Lamborghini out, or whatever the quote is. You probably know what I'm talking about. He just lets his game speak for himself.
Yeah, and you know what? He is in elite company. If he does it a couple more years, 3, maybe 4 more years, he's getting a gold jacket and a big ceremony that we just had for Joe Thomas. All right, this is from Warren Sharp Football. The first to third quarter, fastest paced offenses in the NFL in 2022. Cowboys were 1, Chargers were 2, Chiefs were 3, Bills were 4, Browns were down at number 20. So the question I have for you, do you think that's a factor of because you were so run heavy, you kind of wanted to play at a slower pace because you didn't feel you had the explosive play out of the quarterback position? Does that make sense?
I do. I think you're not necessarily going to try to be up-tempo and pushing the envelope when you have a Jacoby Brissett, who's, of course, a capable backup, did look good for Cleveland last year. But when you're going to push tempo and try to maximize the amount of offensive plays you have in a game, it's because you think, hey, we have an elite quarterback. The more snaps we can get for this quarterback, and obviously more dropbacks in particular for this quarterback, the odds that we win the game go up exponentially. Whereas if you're trying to play run the ball, play good defense, protect the quarterback to build play action, to do some things to make it easier on him, yeah, you want to run as few plays as possible and shrink, basically maximize the variance in the football game where you say, okay, we may have the quarterback advantage, but we can game manage, we can take things slow and keep their quarterback off the field. Ideally with Deshaun Watson, you want him on the field as much as possible. I think that number should go up in 2023.
I would agree. And the other thing I would think is, I think Nick Chubb might not get as many carries, but he's going to be, if you three wides and you have Deshaun Watson, he's going to face a lot less congestion in the box.
They cannot load the box against him as they have in years past, right? You can't have 8 men in the box and you have Deshaun Watson with now Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore and David Njoku and all these weapons around him. I would say this. Ideally, we see Nick Chubb get a lot more fourth quarter carries because he's icing out football games to which they've already built the lead.
All right. This is from NFL.com. One thing to watch for in preseason week 1. So that's this week, even though it's Brown's second game. With Marquise Goodwin sidelined with blood clots, the remaining wide receiver jobs behind Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, and Donovan Peoples-Jones are up for grabs. Cedric Tillman, David Bell figure to have great chances to earn the 4th spot. But if the Browns want to replace Goodwin's speed, it could be a battle coming down between Anthony Schwartz and Jalen Darden. When you look at the guys that are fighting for that spot, 4 and 5 and maybe even 6, who do you think kind of is intriguing?
Yeah, I don't mean this in a mean way, but Anthony Schwartz, I think if he didn't have the, top 100 pick draft capital, probably wouldn't even be on the roster anymore, frankly. Maybe that's taking it a little bit too far. He obviously is a special athlete, but I remember him coming out of Auburn in college, and he kind of just knew how to run super fast, get open in an Auburn offense, and there really wasn't much nuance to his game, and it just kind of seems like that's still the case. There's some mistakes and mental mishaps here and there that certainly don't help his case anymore. Jalen Darden obviously did not stick on in Tampa, had a quick run there. You look back at his career in North Texas, though, all the guy did was produce at an insane clip. Maybe a change of scenery, getting on a little bit of, obviously Tampa's depth chart was super deep there. You give him a new start in a new offense, a new situation. I'm intrigued to see what we could get out of a new Jalen Darden. I saw on there he got injured in camp, but I think a healthy Jalen Darden could be an interesting piece to this offense.
When you see Cedric Tillman, what do you see as well? It just looks like it's a guy, and I keep going back to NFL bloodlines. He just looks like he understands how to play the position at the NFL level.
Yeah, I think some of that stuff is true, and the nuances of the game and the little details that you can't overlook that do matter, especially if you're trying to play a rookie in a pivotal season. He's an older player too, so I think he has learned a lot. Obviously, people talk about Tennessee's offense and all those things, but I think because of his experience and the amount of time he's played at a high level in SEC football, I think he has added a lot of those elements to his game. For me, I think as a rookie, where you see him come in is you're going to get obviously the downfield, go up and get it, contested catch type player. If there is an injury to a Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think he really is stylistically a pretty seamless fit. Obviously, Donovan Peoples-Jones deserves credit for all he's done, how good he was last year, a fringe 1,000-yard receiver. Not saying it's going to be a seamless one-to-one transition, but from a role standpoint, downfield, jump ball target type player, I think we see some of that early on from Cedric Tillman, at least as a rookie.
Before we go to break, the more I watch Amari Cooper, and I'll be honest, I saw him a little bit with the Cowboys, a little bit with the Raiders. Is he underrated? He just, it seems like he always produces and just doesn't say much.
100%. Yes, he's one of the best route runners in the NFL still today. I mean, he's meticulous with his release at the line, his ability to create separation, in particular on back shoulder balls and things of that nature, to where if you need 12 yards and you're a quarterback, he might be the first player you think of. Just, hey, go out there, run a crisp route, create some separation, back shoulder throw, toe tap at the sideline, and you're done. He does have top end speed. He obviously can win all over the field, over the middle, etc. But yeah, he is a route running technician, a true surgeon. And yeah, I think you say he's a little bit quiet, was in a small market before Dallas. Obviously, Dallas is the biggest market. But yeah, I think he has become underrated, or his name just kind of gets forgotten when people make these lists and things like that. And he's been a top 20 receiver pretty much since the day he entered the NFL.
Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, some bold predictions for every NFL team. We'll talk about the Browns' bold predictions. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. So Pro Football Focus did bold predictions for each and every NFL team. For the Browns, number 1, Myles Garrett wins Defensive Player of the Year. Number 2, DeWan Jones becomes the starting right tackle by the end of the season. And number 3, Nick Chubb sets a new career high for receiving. Brad, when we talk about Myles Garrett and Defensive Player of the Year, he's been in that mix midway through each of the last couple of seasons and then gets banged up and can't finish like he started.
Some of those things, right? For those big awards, you have to just get a couple breaks in your favor and just be able to stay healthy for an entire now 17-game season. You rack up those numbers, get 20-plus sacks or close to it in today's NFL. But yeah, a lot of those narratives and award-type things, you have to really get a lot of not luck, but just, everything breaks your way for that stretch of games. But I think he's capable every single year he straps on the cleats. And I think this year in particular, with all the weaponry around him now on that defensive line, if he does play 17 games, he should be, that's a big caveat, but he should probably be the favorite. If you're allowed to put that caveat on every player, I think he should be the favorite to win the Defensive Player of the Year.
And he will benefit from Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator as well. Schwartz will find a way. We talked about the matchups. That's matchup number 1. How can I get Myles Garrett free?
100%, and it should be, and I think he's going to be the biggest benefactor of that move, no question.
All right, DeWan Jones played every snap of the Hall of Fame game. I don't know that any player has ever done that over the past 5-6 years. He looked like a pro, he looked good.
He looked phenomenal. And I mean, I think the talent and the ability has not really been brought into question. You watched the tape last year with him and Paris Johnson. Look, I thought Paris Johnson looked a little bit better, but I didn't see a 100 draft pick gap between those two players when you watch them. Jones is a monster. You can see him at 6'8", and you're watching some snaps and wondering, how he's a dancing bear. How is he moving around this comfortably? How is he handling, it's not a surprise he can handle speed rush and power rush, but, even some of the bendier guys that you saw him play against, sure, at times he'd get, have some trouble getting down there and blocking a guy who had good bend around the edge, but not as much as you'd expect for a guy who is as big as he is and sometimes plays upright. But I thought he looked phenomenal. He has all the talent in the world. If he's focused and driven, yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's going to start over Jack Conklin anytime soon, a very good player in his own right, but I feel phenomenal about my tackle depth if I'm the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and I would assume, Conklin has been banged up, and so that, that might be the reason. But yeah, I want to see him more. I want to see DeWan Jones more. Nick Chubb setting a career high for receiving yards. I would expect them to make him a part of this passing game.
I think so. I mean, the one big thing here is Deshaun Watson historically just does not really target the position. I'm always near the bottom of the NFL in target share to the running back spot because he's a guy that wants to throw home runs and find guys downfield, which is certainly not a bad thing. I'm not presenting that as a bad stat by any way, shape, or form, but I think Kevin Stefanski and the way this offense is constructed is they're going to have some, running back leak and some screens and different ways to get him the ball to where it's basically a rush. He's getting the ball near the line of scrimmage, and then he's getting ahead of steam and moving downfield and making guys miss in open space. I think I agree with that one as well. I think it's very possible. I think it depends how they scheme it up, and I think they are going to want to do that to a certain degree.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Chubb in the open field without 8 guys in front of him sounds like advantage Browns offense.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right. Browns roster spots left in play. This is from Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. So he's got running back 3, Felton versus a free agent. Wide receiver, Goodwin against an illness. And again, blood clot in the lungs and legs. You just don't know what's going to happen there. He says likely Darden if he's out. Guard 4, Forbes against others. And safety 4, Bell versus Hickman. My question to you, Brad, is, when we're talking about 3rd and 4th, the battles for the roster, is this roster that high in terms of how good it is? That there are very few questions about how you're going to make the 53-man work.
I'm telling you, top to bottom, I think one of the more talented rosters across the entire NFL at every position, because there were, pretty glaring weaknesses coming into the offseason, but all we talk about every time I come on is the latest addition that addresses that weakness, not only as a starter, but also, again, as depth pieces as well. And look, Jack has as good of a beat on this roster as anybody else, in Cleveland. I guess he's not in Cleveland, but, I agree with all those. And the funny thing, too, is the first one on there, John Kelly hasn't done a lot, but I love John Kelly. I think he's a great number 4 running back. Like, I even still like some of the pieces that aren't mentioned on there. It's a loaded unit on paper. They got to deliver, but they have all the talent and tools they need to be very successful this year.
Yeah, you bring up Kelly, and so Kelly and Felton are guys that are in their 3rd year, so maybe even their 4th year. If you survive as a practice squad player or a guy that doesn't play a lot in game day and they keep bringing you back, that means they think you can play in the league, right? I mean, it's
just right. You're just stuck on a really good depth chart, right? But the team clearly does still not want to see you go, and they're going to find a way to keep you around. They believe that, hey, keep developing, keep getting better at football, adding more and more skills to your game, and when your number does get called for whatever reason, injuries or etc., you'll be ready to go, and you'll be a good player. Yeah, like, it's not a knock on a player. These are all 99th percentile athletes in the world. They could be good football players. They're just stuck behind elite football players, and I think that is the case for a handful of these names.
When you look at the running back position particularly, do you think they do you think they bring in a veteran? I mean, you've got Jerome Ford, he's got the hamstring, so you're going to get to look at more of Felton and Kelly. Do you think they look to bring in a veteran as running back 3, if you will?
Now that Ford got hurt, before that I probably would say no, and I feel like they would have been maybe comfortable with what they had. I know he's a younger player, but I think getting a full red shirt essentially last year, they would have been fine with him. He's a good 3-down player. I think yes now, because you don't want a scenario to where, God forbid, something happens to Nick Chubb and you feel like you're scrambling to find a player. There's plenty of good talent out there. I don't think they're going to go after, the Dalvin Cooks of the world. I get he has a connection to Kevin Stefanski and all that, but yes, I think they should. There's still plenty of capable players out there that can come in for one-year flyers and be productive in specific roles. And again, a worst case scenario can be there already on the roster, know your offense, know your playbook, have some chemistry if they do need to fill in a more significant capacity for a stretch. Before
I let you go, we talked a little bit about adding Shelby Harris to Dalvin Tomlinson. You've got Myles Garrett, you've got Zadarius Smith, Okoronkwo. How good should this defensive line be, and what should expectations be for this defense?
Yeah, I mean, those 5 right there alone, ignoring some of the depth, should be one of the top 7-8 units in the NFL. They really, really should. I mean, because you do start from, you have a force multiplier in Myles Garrett to where every other player on that unit should be better simply because of his presence. And then Zadarius Smith, like I said, had 80 pressures last year, was top 5 in the NFL, and he had Danielle Hunter in Minnesota, and they worked off each other well. They obviously had a lot of opportunity to rush the passer because, all their games were 30-30 shootouts. But long answer short, no, this should be one of the better defensive lines in the NFL now. With those 5 guys you just named, it's hard to think of many better, top to bottom 1 through 5. Of course, the Niners and Cowboys and Eagles maybe are better and have even more depth, but Cleveland's, sniffing that conversation, right in that next tier, I think, below those 3 teams.
Does their cornerback play with Ward and Newsome and Emerson allow Jim Schwartz to even do a little bit more, do you think?
Yeah, I think so, right? I mean, Emerson proved so much, his ability to play outside. And Newsome, I know he didn't love playing in the slot, but I think maybe he'll be more open to that. I know Denzel Ward talked about it as well. But the flexibility of knowing you have talented players that you can maybe move around a little bit and do different things with. Yeah, I mean, I think they really can get creative, and Schwartz can try to just confuse a lot of opponents by moving guys around and maybe showing different looks pre-snap than what they rotate into post-snap, because he has guys he trusts that are talented and can make up up ground and take some gambles, take some risks here and there. And of course, you can take risks if you know your defensive line is going to get home a bunch, and maybe they save you. And what could have been, a big gain for an offense normally, you take a risk. You could get an interception, but it didn't work out well. Could have been a 50-yard bomb for a team, but Myles Garrett got home in 2.2 seconds and gets a sack instead.
Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Brad Spielberger, make sure you check him out, Pro Football Focus. Follow him on Twitter. Always really insightful NFL coverage, especially of the Browns. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.